What's up, guys? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. Have several more questions to answer, so let's get right back into it. Before we get through it, though, I just have a couple more personal updates to keep you guys posted with how I'm doing. Having a little bit of a rough patch emotionally right now. It's kind of a tough month for me in the middle part of the month. I don't need to go into the details about it, but it's been a little rough. But I still got in a nice round of disc golf yesterday, and as it tends to, disc golf really kind of helped me put things into perspective a little bit. And if nothing else, just kind of clear my mind and focus on throwing the shots and staying in the moment and just taking some damn deep breaths and just being like, you know what, I'm alive right here, right now. This is what's happening. I got to throw these shots. It's a beautiful day. And it helped. I'm not going to say I'm like 100% better, but as it tends to, disc golf kind of helped me feel better. And yeah, I actually set another personal best. That's my third personal best of the year so far already, which is feeling really good. Feeling very confident in my releases off the tee for the most part. I hit two nice birdie putts from outside the circle. One had to be outside 40. They might have both been outside 40 feet. They're pretty long putts. It felt really good. I missed one inside the circle, or a couple inside the circle, actually, but I still was able to finally break my personal best that I've been hovering around at Dabney State Park. I don't want to go into the specifics because it's still not impressive by any means, but it was a clean round. I felt pretty good about it. I took 1-5, which upsets me. I'm always trying to limit bogeys as much as possible. The fives get on my nerves big time. I got 1-4, 1-5, and 1-2 on the front nine, and then 2 2s on the back nine to shoot even par. It's nothing crazy, but it's finally able to kind of break that 1-over streak that I've been shooting there for a good couple years now, and that felt good. Also, since the filming or the recording of the last episode, I actually hit another ace, which is pretty cool, out at Vance Park, hole 7. Made me realize that I think I have aced 3 different times on hole 7 at courses, I believe. I'm fairly certain my ace at Rooster Rock East was on hole 7. I know my ace at Stub Stewart was hole 7. This was hole 7 at Vance Park. Just a really kind of spike hyzer, like a push spike hyzer with an overstable putter. Outside gap, high, and just dunked it straight in. So that felt good. I've been hunting that basket for years. I've hit it multiple times, hit the basket. I think I've hit chains a couple times, and it's nice to finally sink that one. That felt good. I had an old friend with me, and happy to have some old buddies there to witness that one. So let's get into the questions. Enough rambling about me. Stay tuned. I still got a lot more content coming out. The Vulture review is out, all that kind of good stuff. I am hoping to have some other exciting news to let you guys know about next week. Stay tuned, and let's get back into the questions. These were submitted by you guys, my viewers, on a recent giveaway for the Westside Queen. I think it was a couple months ago. I had you guys submit questions. I still have a bunch of them to get through, so let's get into it. The first one is from Christopher Hill, and he asks, have you ever been hit by a disc? I think I've been hit in the leg or something like that once, it skipped up and hit me in the shin or something like that. I think. That sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure. Definitely not like in the head or anywhere where it would really damage me, and definitely not to the point where it was a big deal. I have hit someone. One time I hit a pedestrian, I guess you would say. I threw a meteor, and I flipped it over too much. It turned over, and this kid was running down the fairway. He's probably a teenager or so. Running down the fairway, not paying attention, and it kind of just skipped off the top of his head. It was a meteor, so it wasn't sharp. He was wearing a beanie, and I think the knit hat took a lot of the impact. He didn't seem to be bothered by it at all. He actually apologized to me. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't looking, because I was yelling for and all that stuff. I had no idea. He was playing touch football out in the field that's kind of adjacent to the park, and he was trying to make a beeline for the restroom in between plays or something like that, and wasn't really looking where he was going, and I floated one down there, and it kind of, skimmed off the top of his head. It wasn't a flush hit, and it really wasn't a big deal. Like if it was a driver and you're throwing for power on like a long range shot, that could be really dangerous. It's definitely scary, and that's one of the reasons why safety is paramount when you're kind of designing a course. From what I understand, I know Eric McCabe talks about that all the time, that like trying to limit any of those kind of situations where a shot can come in from another fairway and potentially hurt someone. That's definitely dangerous, and you got to do your part. You can't expect people out in the parks to understand the flight of a disc or where a bad spot may be. I see people out all the time, especially at Rooster Rock State Park. It's a very underutilized course, and I've literally found people like picnicking like in the fairway, blind from the tee, exactly where you're trying to throw. So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff, and pay attention, and it's on you to try to prevent hitting people. It can be dangerous, but luckily I have never seen anything personally that was really a bad hit. I think that's the only time I've even seen someone get hit accidentally, was that time I hit that young man with my meteor, but it's definitely something I worry about for sure. I hope to never see that again. Clay Rexroad, what is your personal go-to plastic type, weight, and disc for max distance, given a lot of room to throw? I'm trying to shatter the 400-foot barrier. Thanks for the great content, man. All right, thank you for watching. Thanks you for listening. Okay, my go-to max distance driver is the Thrasher, or potentially a Trespass if I wanted more, a little more stability and a little bit less kind of movement in the air. So yeah, if we're saying wide open, nothing in the way, I'm going to try to throw it as far as I possibly can. I'm definitely going to reach for a Thrasher. It's got enough understability that it flips up and will turn, but it usually finishes back for me and doesn't just completely turn and burn ever. It's understable, but it's not super flippy, if that makes sense. And it's one of, if not the farthest flying disc I've ever thrown, personally. My buddy Zach is getting huge distance out of a Shrike. He's got a couple different Shrikes that he's getting monster distance out of. That's definitely a really far flying disc. It kind of depends. I'm more of a hyzer flip to let it stand up, start to naturally turn, and come back for distance, just because I feel more confident and comfortable throwing with a hyzer release. A lot of players will prefer to throw something a little bit more stable on an anhyzer release and let it work out a flex. That's kind of up to you to determine what you want to do for that. I like lighter weight discs, especially for max distance. I feel like they go farther in general. So yeah, I would probably say like a 165 or so. Thrasher that I have, that I just got, is actually flying really far. I threw it really far a couple times yesterday. My first run flies pretty far. My Big Z Thrasher will get a lot of distance as well. It's a little bit more broken in now. I haven't thrown that one in a couple weeks, but it's just a really long range disc. Let's see, if I missed anything there. Yeah, weight. Plastic type, so yeah, it's a Z or a Big Z Thrasher for sure. I would imagine I could probably throw a Pro D, like a lighter weight Pro D Thrasher, even farther, but I'd have to put it on more hyzer angle, and it would be a little bit more difficult to control. But some of those like baseline plastic discs, the Pro D Thrasher and the Pro D Force, are both extremely far flying discs from my experience. Good luck. Let me know if you have any other questions on that, although I will say I am not a very far thrower, so I'm not really the best person to ask that question. Might be a good one to send in a Disc Golf Answer Man. I know that they get a lot of questions about distance, but to ask like what type of disc and their approach for max distance might be a good question that they would probably haven't gotten in a while, actually. That's more of an older question that they used to get a lot. John E. Round, when is it the most beneficial to use a hyzer flip versus a normal flat release? Good question. That one's interesting because it kind of depends on your style. Some people are more confident throwing flat with a stable disc. Some people, like me, are more confident throwing on a slight hyzer and having a little bit more understable disc, allowing it to pop up to various angles. I think it's kind of more what you're comfortable with. Also, certain shots, you want them to start on a hyzer and then flip up, because they will have a nice, you can kind of get a nice finish out of a disc when you start it on hyzer. Even if it starts to stand up and turn, if you throw it up nice and high, you can get that shot where it'll actually kind of push forward and sweep down on the hyzer angle, which I like to do sometimes for certain angles. That one's a little bit tough to say, but I think it mostly comes down to a comfort thing, and what you're confident in, what you're most comfortable with, and kind of your go-to release. A lot of people have a particular release that feels more natural to them. I definitely prefer a slight hyzer release to most of my shots, so I use a little bit flippier plastic from there. But I have been working a lot more on throwing nice and flat with more neutral mid-ranges and stuff off the tee, and it's been very nice for my game. I feel like it's increased my control to have that a little bit more dialed in. But yeah, it's kind of hard to say, I guess, and it varies based on the shot and the discs we're talking about and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just more consistent to throw a slightly more stable disc nice and flat than to throw a disc on hyzer and try to let it flip up, because there's some variables in there where a flat shot with a neutral stable disc will fly flat all the way, and should be able to be a little bit more accurate with that for the most part, I would say, if you're confident in that shot. Let's move on. Ben Palm asks, when you play in the rain, is it better to use heavier discs? I don't know. I don't know about the physics at work there. I mean, I would imagine to some degree there must be an effect of rain falling on top of the disc and pushing it down. Will a heavier disc counterbalance that? I think in theory that makes sense. But I'm not really sure there's a really tangible outcome there, or a tangible difference and effect in that situation. But I don't think it can hurt. I would say more importantly, for myself personally, throwing in the rain, is I go with more baseline plastic. A baseline disc like a retro Prime Trespass, or like a Pro D Force, or even DX plastic. All those plastic types have a really nice grip even when they're wet, more so than most premium discs in my experience. So I will often go to a Prime Trespass for a lot of shots on rainy days, or when there's just a ton of moisture on the ground, and every time my shot hits the ground it's getting really wet. If your towel is saturated, sometimes it's only so dry you can get your disc, and the Pro D Retro Prime DX type plastics have a good grip even when they have some moisture on them. Jack Bailey asks, I'm looking at getting my wife into disc golf. What would you recommend for discs that would be forgiving, not only for a beginner, but for ladies as well? I guess it depends. I don't want to overgeneralize women, because there's all different shapes and sizes of women. Some women have bigger hands than others and all that kind of stuff. But I would say overall, you want a nice understable disc, somewhat lighter weight. The same stuff I would recommend for any beginner, really. Lighter weight stuff, more understable stuff, and you probably want to go with smaller rims depending on the size and strength of your wife's hands. Some women have very small hands where a wider rim disc would be uncomfortable, but even that shouldn't really matter all that much, though, because I don't recommend using a wide rim disc for any beginner, regardless of gender. It doesn't make sense. That you need to throw those with speed to get them to fly. So I would recommend a putter or mid-range. Couple options off the top of my head. Soft magnets work great. I got those in the hands of many beginners over the years, and they're very straight flying discs that are easy to throw and easy to keep on a straight line. I think beginners will respond more if they're able to throw on the angle they're looking for and get a little bit of a straight line than throwing a driver that's just going to hyzer out over the whole course of the round. It gets really really discouraging. Where if you get that nice straight shot with a putter, you will connect with that a little more, and it'll be a little more rewarding. You feel like you're getting the hang of it sooner when you're using the right discs. The Wombat, G-Star Wombat, tremendous disc for beginners. It's extremely straight. It has a ton of glide, almost no fade whatsoever, so it's very easy to get it to fly straight up to speed, and you don't have to have much of an arm to get a straight, glidey flight out of that disc. I really like those. I have 3 G-Star Wombats. I no longer carry them in my bag, but I hold on to them, and just for that. If I ever have a beginner come out with me, that's for sure one of the discs I'm going to have them try. Soft magnets work out great. Any kind of understable mid-range or putter, you want to maybe go a little bit lighter weight in general, but basically the same rules apply for any beginner. Understable, lightweight stuff, slow stuff, putters, mid-ranges, maybe a fairway driver like a diamond or something like that, but you might want to wait a few rounds before having her try one of those, depending on how athletic she is and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's only so specific I can be not knowing more, but I would say, yeah. I mean, there's also the whole easy-to-use line from Latitude 64 has good options in there that are basically designed for beginners, and they should have some good options in there for you. Let's see where I'm at. I'm trying to keep track of, I don't skip anybody here. Lucas Williams, how long have you been playing disc golf? That one's pretty easy, in theory, if I can remember. I moved here to Oregon about 12 or 13 years ago, and I played my first round only a few days into moving to Oregon. So I went about a year after that without really playing again. And then I got more into it that next winter, I would say. So yeah, maybe went half a year without playing again. And then I played one more time that winter. And then that next summer, so a full year after I moved to Portland, is when I really started to get into it and actually learn what the hell I was doing out there. The first round did not go well. I had a good time, but it was just, I was throwing a driver, and I didn't know what the hell it was doing. It kept turning to the left on me and just fading out immediately, and it was really discouraging because I was used to ultimate discs and stuff, and it was not behaving the same way. Part of that is a huge reason to do with why I am so kind of invested in trying to help beginners understand what discs to try out, because I really don't want people to start out with something overstable or a high-speed driver that they can't throw and get really discouraged and give up on the game when they would have so much more fun throwing something that they can control and be accurate with. Dan Ford asks, what is the best backpack bag up to date in your opinion? Also, can you make a poll on this? Interesting. Yeah, I could make a poll somewhere, maybe on Instagram or something like that. Best backpack bag up to date. I don't own one personally. I've only seen them in person, and I've heard several testimonials from people that have owned them in the past that the pound bags are tremendous. They're probably the best disc golf bags on the market, I would say. They are extremely well made, extremely thoughtfully designed by a very legitimate bag manufacturer, and he has a ton of experience in like the backpacking community before that, designing backpacks for actual hiking and backpacking where every little ounce counts. When you have to carry everything that you need to not only do what you're trying to do, but to potentially stay alive out there in the wilderness, every ounce counts very much, and he kind of brought that mentality to the disc golf world and makes really lightweight, extremely high quality bags. So I would say the pound bags are tremendous. I have for the money, just bang for your buck, for $40, the Trooper from Dynamic Discs is tremendous. I would recommend those to anybody. Anybody who's saying, hey, I need a backpack bag, I don't have a lot of money, the Trooper is an absolute no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. That thing is great. You can hold 2, 3, up to like 4 discs in the top pocket, several on the inside. It's really lightweight. It's extremely inexpensive for $39.99. Almost anybody can afford that, and it's a really great bag, but that's a really entry-level bag, but it just stands out as a really fantastic option for any players out there that just need a solid bag that'll get the job done. I'm very interested in getting the Commander bag by Dynamic Discs eventually, because I want a little bit more room than my Soldier bag that I have on my cart affords me currently, and I want it to have that nice wide open top for easy access to my plastic. Some of the bags are a little bit tricky to get the discs in and out based on the design of the backpack style bag, and but that's an aside. That's just a personal preference thing based on my setup with my Dynamic Discs Easy Cart by Zuka and all that kind of good stuff. But I would say if I had to pick what I thought would be the best bag on the market, I would say the Pound bag must be up there. Grip bags are tremendous. They kind of got the ball rolling with those high quality backpack bags. DD has great options. People love the Ranger and all that kind of good stuff. I was very happy and really enjoyed my Gateway backpack bag for many years. Still have it. It's still in tremendous shape. It's just in my garage now since I'm not using it because I got the cart, but it's in fantastic shape. It's a really high quality US made bag for the money. Also really great, but I would say the Pound bags are probably top of the line right now. Griffin Rhodes, when did you first hear about disc golf? Probably a couple days after arriving here in Oregon when my buddy took me out. I had played some kind of like casual makeshift disc golf, I guess you could say, with ultimate discs and freestyle discs trying to hit trees. So we would just be like, okay, that big tree over there, par 3, par 4, and just play like object golf essentially, which I think a lot of people did that were Frisbee people. It's kind of a natural game to play. It makes sense. But I had no idea there was an actual formal game with rules and specialized equipment and baskets and all that stuff. I had no idea any of that was a thing. But I got here and he was like, hey, we should go try this out. He knew that I always loved Frisbees and stuff and ultimate discs when we were younger. And once I got out here to Oregon, he took me to Dabney State Park, which is the course that I played yesterday and set my personal best round. Beating my first round by probably 40 strokes or something like that. I couldn't even guess. But yeah, I don't even know if I finished the whole round because it was just getting really frustrating towards the end. I might have just kind of walked out after the last few holes in the woods there. I didn't know what to do. Yeah, but that must have been the first time I heard about it, to be honest. I really don't think I knew there was a legit game that was disc golf until that point. Mike Gervasi asks, what is your favorite disc golf accessory to have on the course with you? That's an interesting question. I would say, I don't know, does an insulated water bottle count as a disc golf accessory? Because I have like one of those 50-50 40-ounce insulated water bottles. That's my best friend on a hot day. Even on a cold day, I took that thing out with me for a winter round this year, and I had some hot tea in there, some like lemon tea with honey, and it was nice and warm, and that was really nice out there on the course in the really cold temperatures. That was beautiful. And during the summer, if you got some nice cold water, I just put a pitcher of water in my fridge overnight, fill the bottle before I head out. It stays ice cold and beautiful for the whole day. I would say that's my most go-to and most quintessential thing that I have on the course is just a good bottle that holds a lot of water and will keep me hydrated and keep my water cool or warm depending on what I want. Also, I have like a huge growler size one that I always take out with me, filled up, just kind of like a base camp one. I don't take it out on the course, but I'll drink a lot out of it before and after the rounds because I really try to make sure I stay hydrated out there on the course. That's a big concern for me. That's not necessarily disc golf specific though, and I'm not a big accessory type guy. Like I don't have retrievers or any of that kind of stuff. One of my favorite ones that stands out, it popped into my head, is my reusable scorecard. I have one of those Discraft reusable scorecards. They're just awesome. I've used it many times. You write down your scores. If you want to save it, you just take a quick cell phone pic of it or just write them down somewhere else, and then you can just easily erase it and start again. It erases really clean, and it's really easy to write on. It's got some rigidity to it, so you don't need a clipboard or anything. You can write straight on it. That thing is phenomenal. I've used it all the time. It's my go-to way to keep score. It slides in and out of my front pocket with the pencil, no problem. Erases easily. I really like those. But yeah, I'm not a big like. I have a whale sack, but I don't really ever use it. My hands don't really get wet. Like my hands stay pretty dry. I don't have like sweaty hands and stuff, and so I don't really necessarily need to feel the need to soak up moisture off my hands very often. So I'm not really a big accessory guy. If you consider my cart an accessory, that would be way up there too. I really love my Easy Cart. Duke Potter asks, what is your recommendation on a solid distance driver for forehand? Man, I wish I could tell you. My forehand is just basically non-existent, but I would go with a Trespass. Probably be a great forehand driver for the average player. It's got enough speed and stability to it where you can put a good rip on it, but it's not so flippy that you're going to yank it over a lot. If you throw in like Anheuser forehands, you're going to need a lot more over stability than that. So you might want to look into something more like I don't know, an Enforcer or a Discraft Force or something like that. The Force is a great Z-Force, great distance driver for forehand if you have good power, stuff like that. But yeah, you usually want to go something at least not understable, depending on the angle. Obviously, you can throw a forehand and get it to flip up and turn over and all the same stuff you can do backhand, but it's a little bit more tricky to dial in, perhaps. You really don't see a lot of that out on the course, other than like Jeremy Colling. You really don't see a lot of pros that use like hyzer flip to turn over forehand lines very often, and it's somewhat underutilized and underdeveloped skill for a lot of our elite players, to be honest. It's not really a thing that a lot of people do, other than Germ. But yeah, I would say you want something with some stability. I would go with a Trespass. If you need more than that, maybe the new Lucid X Trespass, the EMAC one. Those are really stable and nice. Latitude Gladiator probably be a good option, or like a Defender or something along those lines if you need more stability. That would be my recommendation. But again, my forehand is basically non-existent. Bill Bowen, sorry. What is your favorite fairway driver and why? Latitude 64 Fury, hands down. It's very unstable, and I've been very, very successful with that disc on a number of different lines over the last couple years since I put it in my bag. I've never really been a big fairway driver guy. I usually go a lot of putters off the tee, a lot of mid-ranges off the tee, and then I usually go straight from mid-range to something like a Trespass or a Thrasher. That's how I've operated for a long period of time. I was a big fan of the Volt, but only a certain run, like early runs of the Volt where they were much more understable, was when I really liked them. I tried some other ones that didn't connect with me, and I kind of ended up getting rid of the Volt because of that. I didn't want to have a disc that I need to seek out specific versions of it to get it to fly the way I wanted to. That doesn't make sense to me. But that was a fairway driver that I connected with for a while. I like the Escape very much. Good fairway driver with really good distance. I may end up putting an Escape back in the bag to complement my Furies. I think about that sometimes. I have an Opto Saint that I'm kind of working with to have just a little bit more stability than a Fury. But I have two in the bag. I have a 165 with a little dome top that I've aced with at Stub Stewart. It's my go-to disc for sharp turnovers, rollers, hyzer flip to turns, hyzer flips with less power that'll stand up and fly laser straight. Really accurate disc. Got a great birdie with that thing yesterday. I know I can throw it flat and it will turn naturally. If I give it Anheuser, it will hold a turnover strong. If I want to throw a roller, that's my disc that I go to as well. Really tremendous disc that it just covers me on a ton of different lines. And then I have one that's an older run, Opto Fury, that's kind of close to the pre-Sweden plastic blend era, similar to the pre-Sweden Trespasses that I like. It's got the same kind of laser printed weight on the bottom from Latitude. That thing is just that hair more stable, so I can flip that one up to flat and it will just fly dead straight. I got a birdie. I got two birdies on the back nine, both with Furies yesterday in the woods. And it's, yeah, hands down my favorite fairway driver. Cade Judkins. I'm sorry, guys. I do my best to try to get your names right, but sometimes I'm not exactly sure how they're supposed to be pronounced. No disrespect meant. What putting stance do you use, and have you changed stance since you first started playing? Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've tried everything. I tried straddles, straight shot, straight line, kind of front foot straight at the basket. Yeah, spin putts. I've worked on trying to do push putts and pitch putts and stuff. I would say my putt now is somewhere in between. It's kind of like a, I guess, yeah, part spin, part push putt, where I'm not really, it maybe leans a little bit more towards spin, I would say. It's hard to say. I've not really filmed myself putting to really see what my form looks like when I'm doing it well. But it's definitely not like a straight back into my chest and then spin out kind of thing. I try to pull it down, but there's definitely some spin involved to it. It's not like a pure pitch putt, like an underhand style. I can't really do that too well. I try to mimic my stance very much around Paul McBeth. I don't do the little foot dig, but I do make sure that my back foot is secure enough to push off and get my timing right and get that forward push towards the bucket, obviously. And I stand there in a very similar manner. Something about holding it in front of me like that. I like to brace it with my left hand, take a couple deep breaths, and feel that vibe. Make sure my feet are in the right position. My toe is not pointed directly at the pole. I definitely tilt my foot a little bit on an angle, so my big toe will be pointed towards the left on my right foot when I get up to my stance there. And then, yeah, I try to bring it kind of straight down and up again, but I get some wrist pop and just kind of try to reach out towards the bucket. My putting has been a little suspect the last couple rounds, which is frustrating me, but I've still hit a few nice long ones pretty much all the recent rounds that I've had. But overall, over the last couple of years, my putting has been probably my best attribute. My overall game is decently solid, but my putting in particular has been feeling really good. But yeah, I more or less try to picture Paul McBeth. Something about visualizing that just works for me, and I can't really duplicate like Ricky's form or any of that kind of stuff. So it's easier for me to kind of yeah, I guess kind of evoke Paul out there on the green, and I think he's a pretty good option as somebody to try to rip off. Brett Matheny asks, how would you compare the Queen and the Trespass by DD? Okay, the Queen is straighter and significantly more understable from my experience, but it crushes and it flies really, really straight. I like the Queen a lot. The one that I tested for review, if you go watch my Queen review, I really, really liked that disc, and sometimes I regret getting rid of it because it was extremely straight and had a ton of distance. One of the farthest flying discs that I've thrown. I don't necessarily agree that it's a 14 speed by any means. I would put it much closer to a 12. But regardless of that and the kind of subjectivity to the numbers and all those designations, that thing just absolutely crushes, and it's extremely straight for the speed and has an extremely comfortable and wonderful feel in the hand. The Queen's a great disc. The Trespass is sharper. It will stand up and still has great distance, but will consistently fade much stronger than I saw out of the Queen, and it has more turn resistance as well, based on my experience. Mike Woodcock asks, as an older player with a slower arm speed, what grip would you recommend to get the most spin out of the disc? I've been struggling using the power grip lately. Okay. You got to just kind of use what works then, man, because I would say power grip 100%, but I power grip almost all of my shots. Occasionally, I will throw a putter with basically a modified power grip where I'll put my middle finger out onto the flight plate, similar to the way I show in my old grip video from many years ago, which that's the grip I used for all shots in those days, where I'd have my index finger and my pinky, my index finger and my middle finger on the rim, kind of pointed into the rim like a power grip, pinky kind of flush on the pad of the pinky on the rim, and then my middle finger out onto the flight plate to give me just a little bit more control over the angle, the wing angle, because sometimes the power grip can feel a little loose and you might release it a little bit differently. But for the last several years, I've pretty much been throwing power grips on everything. So I tuck my two middle fingers, my middle finger and my ring finger are tucked onto the point of my finger, and then my index finger and pinky are on the pad of the finger, but all four are on that rim. That's just the kind of grip that I use, but it's hard to say. If that's not working with you and you're struggling with it, then I would definitely recommend looking into a fan grip. There's definitely some players that have had success with 3-finger grips as well. Maybe try taking that pinky out of there and see how that works for you. It might help have a nice smooth release out of your hand. And I know that there are several big distance throwers out there that don't use power grips. I believe Simon Lizotte and Eagle both use more of a fan grip. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain they do. I think Jeremy Colling uses more of a fan grip a lot of the times. And they obviously are all in the top 1% of distance throwers out there in the world. So I don't necessarily feel like you need to use a power grip to get your max distance. There's different ways to go about it, but if the power grip's not working, I would say switch it up to a fan, maybe a 3-finger grip. I would stay away from a 2-finger. I think there's only a couple people that can really do that well. Like Robbie Bratton throws with a 2-finger grip. I think you have to have really strong fingers for that. I would recommend using at least 3, but maybe try taking that middle finger off and put it out onto the flight plate and see if that helps smooth it out a little bit. Coming out of your hand, because I think the biggest thing with grip is just reducing drag. You don't want to have your fingers causing drag. You want it to just kind of pop out of your hand on a nice clean release and have that spin put on the disc, rather than having it get caught up on your fingers or opening your hand wide open and just allowing the disc to flop out. You want it to kind of rip out based on the throw, and it'll snap out, and you don't necessarily have to have the audible snap to it, but you want to have it come out of your hand and rip out of your hand, rather than just opening your hand and having it just kind of fall out in the direction. You want it to pop out, and that's how you're going to put that spin on there, from what I understand. But as I've stated many times on the show and on the channel in general, I'm not a big distance thrower by any means. Andrew Pistorius, what's your favorite disc in base plastic excluding putters? Prime Trespass. I have a couple of Burst Prime Trespasses. I carry one. I haven't thrown it a lot lately. Great disc for dangerous situations. Great disc for wet days, rainy days, like we talked about earlier. I like that disc quite a bit. The Retro Anchor is a really great flyer that I like a lot, but I just have so many other... I don't have a lot of mid-ranges, but I have ones that I'm really confident in and that I go to instead. But I do really like that plastic. If the Compass were to be released in the retro plastic, I would almost certainly put one of those in the bag as well, to kind of beat it in, to have a really easy turnover one, and also just to, like we talked about, throw it in dangerous situations. That baseline cheaper plastic takes a lot of the stress away when you're throwing over water, or with there's like steep drop-offs and stuff, because it's not like a $13, $14, $15 disc that you're going to have to worry about losing, which I like quite a bit. I also have had tremendous success with the Pro D Forces in years past. There's Bomb, and I like having a Pro D Thrasher in the bag as well. I had lost mine recently, and I decided I was just going to have a couple of just stock Z ones, because it's not that big of a deal if I lose it, but I still may end up adding another one of those back to the bag at some point, because they're nice to have. Let's see. Jose Ruiz asks, I have a tournament plastic queen, and it's not 14 speed, but I love it. That's more of a statement than a question. It goes right back to what we had talked about earlier, where, yeah, I don't think it's 14 speed by any means. In fact, when Latitude had said that they were going to kind of reevaluate a lot of the numbers post sale and kind of acquisition of Westside Discs between Latitude and DD, when they kind of purchased Westside, and now they kind of co-run it. I was 100% expecting the Queen to be downgraded to a speed 12 when they reevaluated the numbers. It didn't happen. That's their decision. I don't really get worked up about the numbers, because I don't really care. But it's not. I don't see it being a 14 speed. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. Kenneth Robb asks, for a beginner, what is a good disc to learn forehand throws with? I would say any disc is good to learn how to throw forehands with when you're starting out. The same as you would use for backhands, pretty much. You could maybe use something slightly more stable, but a nice neutral mid-range or putter, maybe not a putter for forehands per se. It could be a good way to kind of get your foundation, set up your foundation underneath you with the basics. But I would say maybe a nice, stable, straight stable, neutral mid-range be a good way to learn how the basics of forehand. Because if you start with something overstable, you're almost certainly going to have to rip it over on Anheuser and get flex distance out of it to get a flight. And that's not going to be beneficial in the long run. That's the same problem you run into using high-speed stuff as a backhand beginner. The only way to get it to fly when you don't have a lot of power is to rip it over on anhyzer and let it flex out. That just really takes away your ability to control the disc and throw it on varying angles, which you need to be able to do to be successful in the sport of disc golf. So I would say the same disc you might start to learn backhand with as a beginner, try throwing your forehands with it too. And if you can control it on both forehand and backhand, that's just going to lend itself to more control, more accuracy, and more versatility in the long run. So set up that foundation underneath you and just learn how to throw your nice, straight, neutral discs both ways. That's what I would do. If I could go back in time, I would almost certainly have spent more time working on forehand as a beginner, and I would have went straight to like a Buzz or something like that in those days, and just stuck with that for both of those shots and really worked on it. That would be what I would do if I could kind of go back and start over. I would have stayed away from drivers for quite a while, knowing what I know now at least. I've been able to rectify a lot of that kind of wackiness with not knowing what the hell was going on with my drivers as a beginner, but yeah, it definitely helps, I think, to be able to throw those more neutral discs. Frank Bennett asks, does the cold air make discs not fly as far in the winter, or is it that I am not throwing as often, not warmed up, or wearing 3 layers, etc.? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I would imagine cold temperatures have some effect on the way a disc moves through the air, but I couldn't begin to try to break down the physics of that without probably making myself look really foolish. I don't really know. But I will say I am sure that you're not going to throw as far in the winter when you are wearing a lot of layers. You're not as warmed up, like you said. You're not as loose. Your bodies just can't flex as well when it's that cold. I throw farther in the summer every single year. Like, not even close. It could be that I'm throwing more, but I think your body's just looser, and flexibility is one of the big aspects of throwing far. So yeah, I for sure throw my best drives in the winter or in the summer on those hot days when I'm nice and loose, and I can just get a lot more flexibility into my throws, no doubt about it. But yeah, I would think it's a combination of all those factors, to be honest. And I would have to think that extreme cold temperatures has some effect on the flight of the disc. If nothing else, it does seem that like stiffer plastic will have more stability in general. It seems that way, at least. A lot of the stiffer plastics seem to have more stability for drivers, so maybe just having the plastic firm up like that has some effect on its ability to spin. I really couldn't tell you. Justin Nichols asks, who's your favorite pro player and why is he/she your favorite player? You must be new to the channel here, sir. I am a unapologetic giant Ricky Wysocki fanboy. He's by far my favorite disc golfer in the world. I root for him very strongly when whenever he's playing. I'm also a big fan of Paige Pierce and have been for quite a while. And I have many players that I root for out there on the course. There's very few that I don't want to see do well. You know, I'm fine with whoever wins, but I'm always hoping that Ricky's going to play his best and that he's going to win. Really like his skill set, his long-range putting, his backhand is amazing these days. His forehand has always been tremendous. He really doesn't use it very often anymore. His approaches, I think he's one of the best par 4 disc golfers in the history of the game. Like, his ability to put a long drive in a position and then just get up and down for birdies time and time again is just really impressive to me. And the thing I really like about Ricky is that he's super intense on the course, but off the course, he's a really just fun, goofy dude who's just got nothing but smiles and laughs for everybody. He always seems to be in a good mood anytime I've interacted with him off the course. Yeah, I've taken selfies with him after rounds, and I've hung out with him at like a signing thing, and just watching things like the match play or the skins thing that they do, the luck of the draw skins. That's it. That DD does with Paige and Rick. You can just see that he's just a really nice guy. Like, he's just a really easygoing and down to earth guy. So I really like that about him. He doesn't take himself too seriously outside of the course, and I admire that. I don't really like the people that are kind of just kind of arrogant or really think they're, I don't know, Yeah, just there's certain things I don't like about athletes, but Ricky just seems to always be really cool. I became a big fan of him watching him play the 2014 Portland Worlds. He did so well and just barely was unable to seal the deal, and it was just really frustrating. I felt really bad for him, but just watching him play and just how amazing he played that whole event really cemented him as my favorite pro. I really like Paige. I think she's by far the best female disc golfer in history, and I can't see anyone overtaking her anytime too soon. We never know. We will see, but she is just on a complete other level of just utter domination this year. It's really interesting to see. Next one, Micah Thompson asks, any plans for another run of DGN stamped plastic? That's a great question. Yes, I would like to do that eventually. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to pull that together. I would have to kind of refill my funds to make that happen, but it could be something that could happen this year. I would like to. And I think if I'm going to try to switch it up to a different company, perhaps Innova or maybe Discraft. I love the Trilogy plastic, and I think a lot of people do, but it would be cool to spread the love a little bit. I'm sure I have many Innova throwers out there that watch my channel as well, and that would be cool. Do some like DGN, destroyers and Rock 3s and all that kind of standard Innova stuff that people like. So that could happen. Stay tuned. I will for sure let you guys know if that's going to happen. I may even do like a pre-sale kind of thing to try to gauge some interest and make sure I have the funds to get the box dealt with and all ready to rock. That would be great. So hopefully that'll happen soon. I mean, for sure, eventually that will 100% happen. It's just a matter of when. Patrick Trinko asks, is the DGN channel a labor of love, or does the channel support your hobby comfortably? Half-decent writer and thought about getting into YouTube review game. It's for sure a labor of love. It has provided me with a lot of plastic at this point, through the generosity of many sponsors and people that have worked with me over the last few years or so. Before that, it was 100% a one-man operation, and I really appreciate the people that have helped me out with the stuff. Andy and James for testing plastic with me and letting me film them and use their likeness on the videos and stuff has been really great, and I'm going to heavily rely on them going forward to continue doing that. I may have to bring in some other folks too, just to help with the scheduling and being able to make that all work. But I definitely love it, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, and I wouldn't do it if I wasn't passionate about it. And I'm not exactly sure what you mean by does it support my hobby comfortably? Maybe as far as like income or whatever. For the record, I don't make hardly anything on the ads or any of that kind of stuff. It's a little bit of cash now and again, and I have used it for some stuff. I think one of the times I got a check from Google for the ad revenue, and I used part of it towards my cart and stuff like that. That's definitely happened, or I'll feel a lot less guilty about ordering a disc or two that I want for myself if when those occasional revenue things come in from the ads on the videos. But it's not really making me money per se. I'm probably still in the negative based on the amount of money I spent on all the stuff going into it. The very, very limited equipment that I have, and just all the plastic over the years, and shipping for giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Probably maybe getting close to even at this point based on how much sponsor help I've had, and all that is great. But if you're interested in getting into it, do it. 100% do it. If you want to try it, give it a shot. The worst that can happen is you don't dig it, or you don't get any traction with it, and you move on and try something else. I think the older I get, the more I feel like the things that I regret, and you hear this time and time again from people, is that you regret more the things you didn't try than the things that you tried and didn't work out. It depends, I guess. If you try something that's really dangerous or risky in some way that could put you in a bad position, that's one thing. But if you're talking about making YouTube videos and trying to like do some reviews or provide content out there, throw it out there and see what happens, man. There's no problem with that. I mean, nothing can really go wrong. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You tried it. Maybe you had some fun. Maybe you didn't. that's about it. It's really up to you. You can just make it happen. See where it goes. That's all I did. I mean, I just made an in the bag video and just kept doing stuff. I'm just gonna keep posting stuff and see where it goes. And as time goes on and more traction kind of gets behind this thing, and potentially more opportunities will present themselves. It seems I have a new disc golf related opportunity that's just kind of presented itself just within the last few days. So you never know where it can go if you try and just put yourself out there and see what happens. So I would totally recommend that you do that. If you're interested in it, give it a shot. If you don't feel like it, don't do it. It's all you, man. You make that call. Jim Borgoff asks, what's your favorite drill to work on timing? I don't really do drills. It's probably a problem in my life. I'm a musician. I'm an athlete with disc golf. I don't do drills. Like, I'm not going to sit and run scales on my bass or play different modes and stuff. I try to create music. I try to play music. When comes to disc golf, I try to throw lines. That's it. I go out. Maybe I'll go out in the field and throw just to practice. But a lot of times, just by virtue of trying to test plastic, I get a decent amount of practice in. And when I get out on the course, I like to throw extra shots. That's it. I'll throw my first drive. That's the one I play from. That's the one I keep score on. And I'll throw 2, 3 other ones depending on the tee, just to kind of work on my form. But yeah, I don't really do drills. It's just not. I've never been that kind of person. Like, I'm not lazy. It's not like I don't want to exercise, but just like doing exercise for the sake of it is never something I've been interested in. If you say, hey, let's go take a walk in the woods, I'm down. Hey, let's go run around with a soccer ball, I'm down. But just to do drills and stuff, it's just never really been my thing. I've always preferred to learn through doing things, and maybe that's stunted me in some way. I could probably benefit from doing drills and stuff. I will definitely kind of go through my footwork at times. Like, if it's really rainy, I have nothing else to do, sometimes I'll just kind of walk through my X step and try to get in the vibe of it inside, something like that. But that's about as close as it gets, to be perfectly honest. Jason Franks asks, I like throwing lucid plastic, but as of late, it is feeling slick on the flight plate. What is a way to fix it or a different plastic to use? That's interesting. I find Lucid to be one of the grippier premium plastics out there. It's my preferred plastic. Lucid and Opto plastic is by far the most represented plastic type in my bag, I would have to say at this point. It's definitely up there, no doubt about it. I really like that stuff, and I find it to be grippy. Couple things I could say is perhaps your discs are a little dirty, and you have some like dry dirt on there that's causing grip issues. Maybe try to wash them with some soap. Maybe you've got oil on there from your hands over the years. Like, I haven't done it in a while, but if I play like a muddy round, I will for sure rinse off all of my discs real good and dry them off and let them air dry before I put them back in my bag, that sort of thing. My hands don't get particularly oily or sweaty, so maybe yours do. Maybe you have like a little slick of, some hand funk on there. I'm not really sure, man. That's an interesting one. I have noticed, I will say, when I was into dyeing discs a lot, I would always remove the stamps with acetone. I still do that occasionally just because I like the look of it without it sometimes, like just a blank disc. And it seems that when you clean off the stamp of a disc with acetone, it seems to improve the grip just a touch. I don't know if it eats off any kind of oils or something that's on there, or maybe something that comes out of the manufacturing process that's then washed off or wiped away with the acetone, and then I rinse it and wash it with soap after I wipe the stamp with the acetone. But usually after doing a dye on a disc, it will feel a little bit grippier. Could be in my head, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, that's an interesting question. Sorry I can't be more help on that. Cesar Montez asks, what is your favorite mid-range? Damn, man, you got me on that one. This one's hard. I would have to say it's basically a tie between all of my mid-ranges that I have. The Compass and the Gobi in particular are two of my absolute favorite discs, let alone mid-ranges. The Compass, I have many of them as a Ricky fan, like we talked about earlier. I collect them, so I have several just that I hang on to just because I dig them. I throw the Goldline X compass, and I love that disc. I really trust it. I got it from my buddy Anthony for Christmas, I believe, and I love it. The thing is fantastic. It's just really stable and extremely consistent. I've had a lot of birdies with that disc. I have a beat-up Opto compass that I throw for all my turnovers, and that disc is really great as well. But I would have to say the Gobi is probably my favorite mid-range overall. It's just so straight and has such a great low profile, almost kind of hybrid in between driver and mid-range feel and flight to it. It's just phenomenal. I get up and down from tricky situations with it a lot. That disc, I went to it to secure my personal best out at Dabney yesterday on my final upshot. I had one shot to execute. I knew it was the disc to throw, and it did it absolutely perfectly. I had a ridiculous up and down with it. Advanced the other day from a terrible spot that it's just a phenomenal disc. It's so straight and so straight flying and such a nice disc. I really trust it. And the Gobi is, yeah, probably my favorite mid-range overall, but it's tough to say between that and the Compass. And I also absolutely love the Opto Anchor. The Opto Anchor has been just unbelievable for me in my bag. Just a phenomenal disc. Really, really consistent, and by far the disc I trust the most in any type of wind situation. All right, let's end on my buddy Xander Zaretsit. I love my whale sack and wanted to know, are whale sacks legal to use in PDGA round? Yeah, of course. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. That's an easy one. Tom Stimac. Let's move on. I got a couple more. That was a quick one. Tom Stimac asked, what's a good learning technique for not looking forward to the basket on the reach back? Interesting. Yeah, you can't do that. So just to clarify, you guys can't do that. You can't be looking at the basket when you're trying to reach back. You gotta learn how to be comfortable turning away, or else you're never going to be able to throw far. Just period. You have to be able to turn away from the target and trust that your line is and your body is lined up in the right way to get you to throw on that angle, or you're not going to be able to do it. One of the really beautiful things about being able to throw forehands, and something that I believe Jeremy Colling has referenced many times on like Jomez and stuff, is that you can throw a standstill forehand and you can face the target. So you can definitely make that work. For backhands, it really doesn't work. You got to look away regardless of the throw, even if it's a standstill approach, depending, I guess. If it's a really short approach, you might be able to stand pretty straight at it and just kind of flick your wrist at it and let it get up there. But for driving, you got to learn to be comfortable. For me, it's about setting up your footwork in the right way and just learning the way you need to point your shoulder in that direction. So once I'm turned away, I'm kind of using my shoulder and the reach back as the line, if that makes sense. Let me see if I can explain that better. So I'm reaching away from that, but I'm kind of painting that line with the disc on that plane, knowing that I'm going to pull it in tight to my body and pull it through on that angle. So that's the way I kind of line up. The angle of release is I'm kind of backing into it a little bit. You don't want to turn completely away. You want to stay pretty sideways and reach back, but you have to have your head turned off that plane. And also, once you pull through, allow your natural follow-through to pick your head up and then allow you to look forward. If you try to throw and then immediately turn your head somewhere in the middle of the throw, it's going to throw off your timing and your rotation and stuff, and it's going to cause problems. So it's tough. I definitely get it. As far as a learning technique, I would say just work on throwing flat, straight shots and dead straight down the line, whatever you want to do, just keeping it on that angle. You can even just set up a cone or just pick a target out in the field somewhere, and just work on angling your footwork and your body so that as you're going through your motion and you reach back the disc, you have your whole form lined up in the way that you need to be able to pull through in tight to your body and know that it's going to come out on that angle and fly straight out towards the bucket. That's all I got for this time. I'm going to leave off on number 44, so I can go back and listen to this to reference it if I forget. Still have quite a few to work through, but I got through some there today. Thanks to everybody for listening. I appreciate your support very much. If you guys have any other questions for me that aren't addressed on this, or you have another one you want to submit that I can answer in a future episode, or I can just send you a personal email straight back to you and let you know. discgolfnerd1@gmail.com is the easiest way to get in touch with me. Also, follow me on Instagram if you want to keep up with other things I'm doing. My Instagram stories is often not disc golf related, so if you want to know what I'm eating at a restaurant or any of the kind of silly Instagram type stuff that goes on, feel free to go stop by and check that out. Hopefully have some exciting news for you guys in terms of new opportunities for me in the disc golf community coming up here relatively soon. I will, of course, keep you guys posted. Thanks for listening. I'll check you later. Cheers.